thank you for joining me today on this lovely Tuesday, not Friday, and we're going to be doing some somatics and Feldenkrais inspired movement. So there's going to be options to sit or lay in this because you know, the lesson's mixed for people who can't really lay for too long. So if you feel it better to lie down, then lie down. So yeah, we're going to start by closing eyes. So if you want to lie down and check in, you're very welcome to, but if you prefer to sit and check in, then check in while sitting. So I'm just going to sit up. I think it's because you can hear me better if I sit up. We're beginning our somatic exploration of, you know, closing the eyes. The eyes are a massive stimulus for, you know, the body. We take in things, we're distracted by things. I don't know if you're anything like me, but if you see something in your house, you suddenly think, oh, I've got to do that later, and then your mind's off on a little journey. But closing the eyes is one of the loveliest things you can do. It just enables you to start to listen in a little bit deeper. And in closing the eyes, it's like you're shining a spotlight on the body. And just taking a little look around. And as you close your eyes, you know, what are you seeing as you have your eyes closed? Are you seeing images? Are you seeing dreams? Or is it just a black void? Or can you just see, you know, the pinkness of your eyelid? And then we can take ourselves to another sense. We can think about the sense of hearing and any sounds that might distract us around the room, outside. Just imagine you could just close the ears a little bit and just begin to listen in. And what are you hearing? Are you hearing your thoughts? In monologue? Are you hearing your breath? So just take a little time just to listen a little bit more to the breath. And as we have our eyes closed and our ears closed, we might then become more aware of our sense of taste. So just noticing any flavours that might be resting in the mouth from earlier. Feeling the heat of the tongue. Moistness of the mouth. Just allow your tongue to feel soft. Just let it rest wherever it needs to rest. And just checking in on the jaw, is it relaxed? Is the face relaxed? What else can we notice about the body? Our next sense is the one of touch. So we can sense and feel how it is to rest into the floor, whichever way you've chosen to be. How do we identify with the weight of the head? So if you're sitting, how do we sense the weight of the head, how it touches the neck and rest down through the bones? And for laying on the floor, how do we sense the weight of the head resting into the floor? What part of it touches the ground? If you're lying on the floor, maybe turning your head from side to side, and if you're sitting, maybe just bring your head forwards and bring your head backwards, or just allow it, you know, just to change its sense of centre, if that makes any sense. And then we can allow it to slowly come to rest again. We can bring our focus into the shoulders and how they touch the floor. And if you're sitting, how do the shoulders rest within the clothing? Do they feel balanced? And as you're lying on the floor again, would you say there's a sense of balance, or is there a sense of symmetry, or do you notice that the shoulders might feel that they rest into the ground in different ways? And how do we feel the arms resting down by our sides? What are they touching? What are the hands touching? You can journey down the spine, taking its shape from the neck, through the ribs, through the belly to the hips. Again, how do we sense and feel the spine? So again, experiencing it in our different ways on the floor. What feels heavy, noticing the gaps behind the neck and the lower back. And if you're sitting, what parts of the body touch the clothing? And then moving to the hips, and how do they respond to the ground? And if we can picture almost a line being drawn down the body and just check for symmetry. So we're not, being like scientists and analysing with any great depth, but just getting a really good sense of the symmetry of the body, down the left side and the right side. Just feeling the way the weight yields into the floor. We can take that awareness all the way down to how the legs and feet touch the ground. And just moving your awareness just gently into your breath. So as you're breathing in and breathing out, how do you experience that sense of smell as you breathe in? Do you smell anything? And as you're breathing in, how do we experience it? The breath in the chest, the belly, the back. What are we sensing? In all our practice is somatic and Feldenkrais, whatever you want to call it, asthmatic movement, we're just being gentle, being kind. We are really listening to signals. We never push, we never hold a stretch, we never even use the word stretch. It's just more about trying to find ease and grace of movement. So now we begin to identify with this body that we've arrived in the room with this morning. We're going to just very carefully, slowly bring ourselves to seated, just at the beginning of the practice. And we've got an opportunity, if you want to lie down and finish this movement off, but take a seat. I'm going to stay where I am. I'm going to just allow them to wear dark clothing, and you can then see my legs properly. So sitting, if you wish to sit, like I said, there's the option to lie down on your back. If you want to lie down, you've got the feet in front of you, you've got the knees bent, you've got the hips on the floor, and our arms by our side. So we're going to take that first movement into a gentle version of an arching flatten. So let's start with our tailbone. So if you're laying on the floor, you're going to press the lean, roll the tailbone away, and as you do that, you're going to feel your lower back begin to rise and arch, and then pressing the very top of the pelvis into the floor, we feel the lower back begin to flatten. And again, sense, feel, roll the tailbone away, feeling the expanse of the tummy. And again, as you press the lower back into the floor, we feel it flatten and the ribs come closer. But you would do that differently, obviously, if you're sitting. We are rolling the tailbone away from us, and you feel the belly come forward, the ribs lift and the shoulders broaden. And then we pull the navel in, tucking the tailbone down, and we can lower the gaze down towards that. And that pelvis has got a lot to say with how the spine moves. So just take your time to put the tailbone under and feel the ribs closing on the pelvis. And roll the tailbone away, feeling the front of the body open and blossom. And we're just working carefully, taking as much time as you need. Be in no hurry. And it's always nice, I think, to observe the head, just to let your head be a little passenger in this. So if you're lying down, you might feel your head nodding. And if you're sitting up, you might feel your head taking a little bow and lifting up, like you're saying, no, or yes, very, very slowly. What you're feeling really as you're doing that is your spine. Your spine is going on a lovely journey, and it's being either pushed through the body or pulled through the body. Just let the head dangle, let your head nod. So just briefly take yourself into centre, wherever it feels like centre. We're going to use the muscles a little bit now, so we're going to just think more about it somatically. about how we do this. So to feel the lower back arch and for the ribs to lift, we're going to engage the muscles of the back. So I want you just to feel that you could just isolate the muscles in the back body. Just imagine them pulling downwards towards the bottom and allow the ribs to lift. So if you want to lay down and practice this, you might feel it a little bit differently. And then we're going to think about the muscles of the tummy, so pulling the navel in towards the spine. We're going to feel those muscles of that begin to release and the tummy muscles tighten again, like the gaze and forward. So think less about the pelvis, more about the muscles. Imagine, sense and feel the muscles of the back beginning to tighten, allow the ribs to lift. And we can even emphasize this, squeezing the shoulders down a little the back. And again, tighten the muscles of the tummy and feel the ribs come closer to the pelvis, and again let the head fall forwards. So again, thinking more about those muscles. So I'll just show it for a while so we can sense and feel. Let's take a little rest. So just allow yourself just a second. Again, if you were lying down before, we climb back into the floor. If you're happy to keep sitting, just sit. And take your awareness into your belly. Just let your belly rise and gently fall. So the next movement, if you are laying down, I think it might be better if you can lay down to lay down for this one, but you know equally good just to have your to rest into your hands, have your feet in front of you. We're going to rock onto our rock side by side on the pelvis. So I'm going to demonstrate it lying down to start with. So we're going to just begin to lean into our left hip. Let your right hip begin to lift. And then let your pelvis come back to the floor and then lift your left hip off the floor. So you're rocking across the pelvis. Keeping your knees standing up if you can. And just feeling as you're doing that how one side lengthens as the other side shortens. And if you're sitting, we're going to have these hands behind. And again, just letting your right hip lift and let your left hip lift. And again, feeling as you do this how one side lengthens and the other side shortens. And it might be nice to let the head join in with this. You might notice that your head kind of naturally wants to turn the opposite way to the pelvis. Let the head kind of just turn the opposite way to the pelvis. You might notice that you can let your feet do some of this actually. So if you are kind of feeling that the pelvis is doing this, just pause for a moment and just sense and feel. If you were to push with your right foot, what would happen to the pelvis? Can you feel that it would lean to the left? And as you relax to centre and then push with the left foot, can you feel it lean to the right? Take your time to explore, sense and feel. Just the work of your feet, the very clever feet that you have. And again, you could do this with the feet as you're sitting, so pushing gently away with the right foot, you'll lean the hips to the left. And pushing gently away with the left foot, leans the hips to the right. So again, just take your time. So let's just take ourselves to centre, and we're going to combine the arching with the roll into the side and come to circle. So if you're laying on the floor, we're going to roll the tailbone towards the floor, then drop the right hip, then the lower back, and then the left hip. And if you're sitting, again, doing the same thing, rolling tailbone, right hip, left hip. Just let the belly circle above it all. You're just noticing that pelvis is moving in space. This leads us into around the clock, which is a gentle somatic movement. So if you could just now picture you're going around the edge of the clock. So sitting, it's going to feel a little bit different, but just, take your time. Imagine that you're the minute, the second hand, the one that goes really quickly around the clock. And we could reverse time. And, as you're doing this, you're kind of looking for like little judders, little bits that might skip. And that's, the sensory motor amnesia sometimes coming in. It might be part of the body that's kind of like, hang on a minute, I don't really want to play ball. So if you kind of notice that's happening, it's sometimes really nice just to kind of go over that little bit again a few times and practice how it is to move in that area and to really get a good sense of that little kind of gap in the mind body experience. And let's hold the clock. I just want you to picture now the hands on the clock are pointing at 10 and 4. That makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. So we're going to press the number 4 into the ground and then roll across that. Imagine you kind of going diagonally across the clock, and we're going to press the number 10 into the floor. Or lean it back towards the floor, and then again roll and lean the number 4 towards the ground, and then roll and lean the number 10 towards the ground. Just what are we feeling in the pelvis, in the waist? What muscles do you think are actually working to help us move? And then bringing yourself to centre, and just imagine that there's a number 8 and a number 2 on your hip and ribs. And we're going to again lean, press the number 8 towards the floor. And again, diagonally across the hands, across the centre, lean and press the number 2 towards the floor. So it might just be, obviously, if you're sitting back, that you're just maybe leaning back towards your left hand and leaning in towards your right hip. We're looking for ease of movement. And then just coming back to centre, I'm just going to have a little roll again, coming back to our very first pose. So again, if you're sitting, just coming back to seated, and if you're laying down, maybe just stay on the floor and roll the pelvis away and tuck the tailbone under. And just check, does it feel like a happier and more friendly movement? So let's let go of that for a second. Let your legs extend out in front of you if you can, and just take a really, really good rest. You might even just want to change position completely and just take a few breaths. And these rests are just so important for you to begin to again engage and experience the benefits of these movements, lots of unpicking. So do we feel any sensations in the hips and the lower back? Does it feel like it connects deeper to the floor? Do we feel any kind of untangling of the lower back? So let us all come to seated now. So find a nice happy way to do that. And sit back a little bit again. Got on my light on, makes no difference whatsoever. I'm moving a little bit further forward, I think. Still dark, it's slightly further forward, I think. Literally every time I teach, it just goes dark outside. I'm in a south-facing room, it's still dark, but there you go. And so what we're doing is sitting. So if you can sit like this, I know that Pat, you've gone before onto a chair, haven't you? So it's we're going to be doing that serpent-y thing. So it could be, if you can sit on the floor, but you might just not have the legs in exactly the same way as me. So it might be you end up straightening one leg. It might be that you grab a cushion and have it under a hip or something like that. So you want to be comfortable to start with. It could be that you're you live like in DFS or whatever that shop's called, and you've got cushions everywhere, so you might just prop yourself up completely. So make yourself comfortable. You're sitting to one side, so I've got my feet across to the right, and I'm leaning into my left hip a little bit. So if you're sitting on a chair, you would find you kind of want to sit. I'm just going, oh, let's use this as a chair. You're going to kind of sit side on, so your hips on that left side and your right knee kind of out and off to the side. So your right foot might just be right on the edge of the chair, but most of the weight from that left side. Anyway, so there you go. So arrange yourself in that way. So feel the weight of that left side on the body, on the floor, sorry. And then we're going to use our right hand. So you can bring your right hand across and over to your left ear. And yeah, so you might feel that your left, what's it called? Neck, there you go, is lengthened. And you want to get this head and the hips communicating. So you can have your left hand on the floor if that feels, or on the chair if that helps you. So your left ear, I want you to take it towards your left shoulder. And then bring your right ear towards your right shoulder. So you're kind of nodding your head a little bit from side to side. So I think is this how people in India say yes? So wiggle the head from side to side. So you're taking your left ear towards your left shoulder and your right ear towards your right shoulder. And starting to notice, particularly if you take your head to the left, that your ribs on the right begin to expand. And let them open. And as you bring your ear to the right, feeling those ribs kind of close in on the right side. So you're taking the ear to the left, and the right side expand. I think, yeah, you're doing the right. I thought you were doing the wrong arm then. Taking the ear to the shoulder and feeling as you're bringing your left ear towards your left shoulder, how your right hip drops towards the floor. And then as you bring your right ear and your right elbow towards the right side, can you just begin to let your right hip pick up a little bit and roll forward? And then again, as we take the left ear towards the left shoulder, we can feel the right hip descend into the floor, the right side begin to expand. And again, taking the ear towards the shoulder, can we feel this right hip just willingly beginning to pick itself up? And letting the right hip descend into the floor. And the right hip begin to pick up. It's all because we're moving the head. So just let your head be the guide here. So all the body is doing is finding the most organized way of moving. So to let this movement happen, it's like let's just drop a hip. Bringing the ear to the shoulder, shoulder and the hips come closer. Ear to the opposite shoulder and the hip descends. So just think about, this lovely little serpent-like movement now of the spine. Some of my favourite movements then. Just feeling how the pelvis, the ribs and the neck and the head are just communicating with each other. Just slow it down, take your time to slowly bring your ear towards your shoulder and just feel how the hip begins to drop. So we're not pushing this head, it's so intelligently moving the spine. So let's take ourselves just to centre briefly, bringing your feet out in front of you. And just take a rest just to feel the body. Checking in on the left side of the neck. The right hip, does it feel heavier? Do you feel like, I feel like I'm a little bit more lopsided now, that left side, like my neck's just turned spaghetti. So let's take this the opposite way. So we're going to swing your feet the opposite way. Now my feet are over to the left, my knees have dropped to the right. I'm bringing that weight into my right hip. So again, if you're sitting, I would say again that the chair should be underneath your right hip. Have your left hip slightly on it, just so that you don't feel that you're going to topple off, but the majority of the weight is going to be on this right side. And place your right hand on the floor, and your left hand will find its way over towards your right ear. And again, just settle, feel the weight of the left hip before you start. And then we're going to be guided by the right ear. So taking your right ear towards your right shoulder. And then taking your left ear towards your left shoulder. And just take your time. Firstly, you might just feel that there's nothing going on, that it just all feels a little bit creaky. So we're not pulling on the head is leading. But then starting just to notice that as you take the right ear towards the right shoulder, you can feel underneath these left ribs that we're getting some lovely expansion. And as you bring the ear to the shoulder, you might feel the hips come to neutral. But as we take the right ear to the right shoulder, we let the left hip sink towards the floor. And then feeling as we take the right ear towards the right shoulder, again we can start to invite the left hip to lift and roll. Just see how it feels, just to feel as we come back to centre the weight of the hip, and as we take the right ear towards the right shoulder, how we can feel the hip and that left side begins to lengthen. And again, that beautiful serpent-like movement. I'm doing the wrong side. No, I'm not. Feels very weird. And then whenever you're ready, just allow yourself just to settle in centre. And again, experience how it is just to be with the head resting on top of the body. We're just going to pay attention again into the neck and the shoulders. Does the neck feel a little bit longer? And how do the hips feel? Do we feel that they're just beginning just to settle in to the floor a little heavier? So while we're sitting, I'd like to take ourselves into a little twist, if you don't mind. So having your feet out in front of you again, and resting your hands into the floor behind you. And this can be done a few different ways. Let's have a little play actually what we can do here, shall we? So we're gonna take the knees across to one side. Doesn't really matter which one. So I've dropped to the left and I've rolled onto my left hip. My right hip's kind of just rolled off the ground quite happily. And then I'm going to think about, think about really, really heavy right hips, almost like weight of sand pouring into that hip, and beginning to roll back, my knees pinging up and rolling, and I'm going to the right side and just again letting the hip roll, pelvis roll, knee roll. And then allowing the left pelvis to fall back, knees begin to ping up, and again rolling very carefully from left. Right, and you might start to notice that as you do this, that your hand behind you begins to pick itself up, and we can begin to turn to look over the opposite shoulder. So just take your time again, just to think about this movement coming from the pelvis. The pelvis is heavy, the legs are rolling, and let the hands maybe from behind you come around to the side that you're looking at, and then look over the shoulder. And as you're looking over the shoulder, you maybe even look at the ceiling, look at the floor, look at the walls around you, look at all the things that you're going to have to tidy up probably later on at some point in your life. And then we're going to go the other way. So again, let your pelvis fall back, knees begin to ping, and again look behind you and take your time to again look to the ceiling, to the floor. And look all around the body. I start to feel a little bit owl-like with this movement. And then we're going to roll the pelvis away, the opposite side, and again, take your time just to to follow the movement. Notice where it starts, all the way by one foot. And as you fold yourself back, and take your time just to place those hands gently to the opposite side, and again notice where the movement is. Again, we're not pushing into this. This is not about getting into the craziest twist you've ever got into. Let's go into the pelvis itself. So I just want you to bring yourself into the thigh bones. And as you do this, notice what your thigh bones are doing. They're crossing across the pelvis, aren't they? Doing the length from the knee all the way into the sacrum. And then we can take this movement up into the spine, notice and sensing the movement into the belly, into the chest, into the neck. And then we could even begin to explore, taking our hands towards the floor. So the hand that trails across the body. So I've moved myself to the left, my right hand's found the ground by my left knee. I'm going to begin to slide it away from me towards the corner of the room. And then sliding the hand back in, so we've got a nice carpet, just imagine that your carpet really needs some care and attention. It's the loveliest carpet you've ever had, and you're just like, oh wow, I've got to touch and stroke this carpet. But as you're doing it, being led by your hand that's got all this register of sensations, feeling through the wrist, the elbow, the shoulder, all the way down into the sacrum. Then we could explore letting the hip come back and roll in the opposite way. And as the knees fall to the right, the left hand comes across. And again, explore feeling the carpet again. I don't know if you've ever seen Get Into the Greek, but there's a fairy wall in that film. You'll feel like, ooh, carpet. So feel from the hands, the wrist, the elbow, the shoulder again, the sensation, and how that that the hands again, how it attaches into the pelvis through the bones of the body. Again, take your time to roll the other way, so you know that you don't have to go and go in my speed. You might be happy to linger on one side. You might be happy just to kind of let the knees fall from side to side, so I can see that the twist if you're sitting is very difficult. But if you just keep rolling again, let the pelvis be the guide. Wherever you are, the pelvis, just think about it being heavy at any given time. And if you want to feel the flow, but if you don't want to feel the flow, don't feel the flow. That feels better. That's a very strange thing to say. Be that you have found a little sweet spot that you want to hang out in, and I wouldn't blame you at all. So you're going to have a little rest if that feels good, and let the bones feel heavy. And then let's come back to centre. And I know that one of us is in a chair, so you can stay put, but everybody else is on the floor. See how you feel about bringing your bottom closer to your feet and moving into a bit of a crouchy squat thing. So I need to adjust this camera because I'm going to do the leg one that I mentioned for these cards. So from here, we can begin to push down into toes, tuck your tailbone and roll to standing. And while you're doing that, I shall just adjust my camera. So if you're sitting on the chair, you can stand up. Standing up in a somatics class. Are you crazy? Yes, I am crazy. I can find, I'm visible. There you go. So this is very similar to warrior. So if you need to use a wall or a chair, and that's not about mobility actually, but it's more about it might actually help with this. But I'm happy to do it without any of them. We're going to take 1 foot forward. So let's start with your right foot. Have that in front of you, and then step your left foot back. Let's move this slightly a bit closer to me. You can see how quite the tragic happens. You can see the tragic happening. So in fact, I'll turn towards the right so you might see a little bit more. So this is my right foot, and this is my left foot. So let's bend our right knee just a little bit. So what we're trying not to do really, this is not a stretch for the hips, this is actually for your calf behind you, or even the release. So we've just got this knee bent, and then we're going to work with this left foot. So I want you to lift the heel and spread the toes. And now your left calf, I want you to think about tightening it. So imagine you could squeeze all these muscles in on your left calf. Just start to focus in on the left calf, the muscles in the back, and tighten and feel that you are tightening them. You might feel that your toes are really pushing into the floor, you're tightening the leg, you're actually tightening the hamstring as well. And we're going to start to go against this movement now. So very slowly, I don't want you just to kind of let go of it, but take your time to slowly release the muscles in the calf as you begin to bring the left heel into the floor. And then one more time, we're going to push down into toes, tighten the muscles of the left calf, feel that we are engaging through that left calf, the hamstring, feel those muscles, and then again, a very slow release, pressing the heel to the floor, straightening the leg. You might start to notice that left foot starts to kind of play ball and feels a little bit, like it's resting. And again, one more time, pushing down through toes, lifting the heel, tightening the muscles of the left calf, and then slowly begin to press and feel those muscles begin to release. And we're just going to pause here for a second, and then we can bring our hands to heart and look very yogic if we wish. And then let's push with our right foot and step ourselves into our Tadasana for a moment. Just rest into Tadasana. And then we'll do the right leg. So slide your right foot back. So when you're doing this as well, you want your feet to be pointing forward. So if your toes are pointing outwards, it's going to feel really weird. So it's like you're striding basically. And it doesn't have to be like a massive, crazy yoga stance. So heel to floor to start with. You can just sense and feel how this calf feels and the heel and the footprints that you're making. And then we are going to bend the left knee this time. So coming towards what we feel in yoga class like a warrior pose. So the pelvis, the middle, the spine is stacked, knees bent and tracking over towards the middle of the foot. Now, right foot. So we're going to push down through the toes to lift the heel, and then mentally engage with those muscles, tighten the muscles, feel how they're going solid actually. And then slowly, imagine you're pressing on the pedal of the heel. Take your time to release the heel into the floor, and again feel the bones begin to line up. And then inhale, push down with the toes, tighten the muscles of that left leg, right leg, feel what is going on. And then again, slowly begin to release them into the floor. Inhale, tighten, sense and feel. And exhale, slowly begin to release. Actually, I'm now beginning to think this also works in the hips, because obviously to tighten, this thing's going up further in the body. Relax the footprint, bringing the hands to heart. And then let's press down into our left foot and stand. And just bring your hands down by your side. And just for a moment, feel the weight of the feet. So we never just dancing things in this lesson. I call it lazy yoga generally this. But while we're standing, I think it'd be quite nice to experience a light way of standing. So we're going to roll into Tadasana. I'll just tuck this in so you can see better. So look down at your feet and just, I always think about where my pelvis is and the bones, and just see them lining up and the feet resting into the floor. And then I've got baggy trousers on, but I'm just going to bend my knees a little bit, and it's all because we're going to push to standing. So I don't need to feel that you're going into chest, so please don't kind of squat or anything like that. It's just a little bend of the knee. And then if you can now picture your spine is nicely stacked, but we're going to soften it. So from your head down to beneath the ribs, down. Just feel this from the neck to the middle of the ribs begin to soften. And let your arms dangle in front of you. So just think about your arms being like little loose ribbons. And I like to see this as a movement that comes all the way from the floor. So we're just going to firstly lift up the toes and then push them into the floor. So we're lifting up the toes and then pushing them into the floor. And as you do that, do you feel up in the hamstrings and the hips a movement upwards? Just do it a little bit, pushing down into toes and just feeling and sensing any movement upwards. So what we can then begin to do is push down into the floor and allow the legs to straighten. And follow that movement up to the hips, and as the legs straighten, we feel the pelvis come to neutral. And then slowly begin to let your pelvis tip back backward, and let your belly begin to rise. And follow them up into your heart and just let your gaze begin to lift. And so where your arms now are just kind of dangling loosely behind you. So now your tailbone, just nestle at the top of your buttock. Draw it back a little bit towards the wall behind, feeling how your legs begin to straighten, and allow your pelvis to come to neutral. And just feel that we can just stack the spine on top of the body. Head rests on top of the spine. So let's do that again. We're going to bend the knees. Again, soften the top of the spine, arms are loose. Lifting up the toes, press down, feeling the movement of the earth pushing up through the body, into the hips, pelvis tilt, lengthening all the way up towards the heart, lifting the gaze, and then draw the tailbone back, thighs begin to straighten, letting the head rest on top of the spine. And then just play with that in your own way. So I'll just see if I can see any of this within your wounds. Feel how the forces of the world push up through the body, and just by moving the pelvis into an upright position, the spine settles and the head settles. Whenever I have a sore back, I might notice that I've been kind of leaning. A lot of us tend to push our pelvises forwards to stand. Just letting the pelvis come to neutral, allow the bones to settle. Just allow yourself at some point just to find that sense of neutral, gazing forward, feet settled into the floor. So, while we're standing, oh God, it's quite far, we're going to move in a minute. I want you to look over at your left shoulder. Notice what you can see behind you. And then turn your gaze forwards. I am very dark in this corner. I'm obsessed with lighting. Anyway, so your left hand, you're going to pick it up in front of us, taking an inhale. And then take the left hand out by your side. At your next inhale, bring the left hand in front of you. And then exhale, drop it down. Inhale, bring the arm up. Exhale, out. Inhale, back. Exhale, down. So just do it in your own time. Don't worry about my breath. Just keep your chest forward. Let's take this the final one. Lowering the arm down. Turn your head and look around. What do you feel and what do you see? Do you see a different part of the wall? But more than anything, what I like to sense is what am I feeling down into my left hip, which feel a little bit lighter and freer, and into the left calf. And then turn your gaze back to the front, and then we're going to look over the right side. So notice again what part of the wall you're looking at behind you, what you're looking at, how does it feel in the body? And then turn your gaze back to the front, and we're not going to move, but we're going to imagine that same movement. So we're going to imagine the inhale, the exhale, the inhale, the exhale. So just close your eyes, picture the movement with your right hand. So no need to move the arm at all, just picture the arm floating up, picture the arm moving out to the side, picture the arm coming back out to in front of you, and picture the arm drawing down by your side. It's all in your imagination. And I just really like to notice what the eyes are doing as you're imagining this movement. Sometimes the way you can release tension in the body just by the eyes moving. So some of the somatic practices that you do involve moving the eyes, like one of those action man toys. Because even in the muscles of the face we hold tension. Just notice what the eyes are doing as you imagine the arm floating up, floating out, floating back, and floating down. So let's just do one more imaginary round. Open your eyes, turn it around, and again, what do you see? You look at a different part of your eye. I'm looking here, I was looking at before. And again, down your right side, what do you feel into the hips, into the knees? It's a little bit freer. You have a little swing, let go. And then we'll come and sit back down again. Yay, sit down. That's why we come to these lessons. We sit on the floor. So come and have a sit again. So, that wasn't in the lesson, but there you go. What we're going to do. We are going to do something really nice, she said. Not that I wouldn't give you something really horrible. So we're going to lie down for this one. So I know that you can lie. Are you okay still to lie down there? Okay. So it's what we did the other week. So we're going to lay down with one leg straight. We've got one. No, we've got one leg straight. Yeah, we can have. I'll just do it. Let me tell you. So we're going to lie on the floor. You can see me, can't you? So this is my right leg. Hello. And it's the foot's on the floor, and this is my left leg, and that leg is straight. And my arms are just down by my side. And then take your right hand, bring your left hand out, roughly around shoulder height, maybe a little bit higher if it wants to go there. And then take your right hand and place it on your left shoulder. And so for here, we're going to move, because I don't want to stay on the back for too long. So we're going to just push into that right foot and feel how the pelvis begins to turn. And then allow your right hip to sink back down onto the floor. And then again, push into your right foot. Feel how the hips begin to turn. And then again, settle back down and let your right hip settle into the floor. And it's all from the push of the right foot. And just keep your knees. Imagine you've got a little mouse or a ladybird. So you don't want to disrupt too much sitting on your right knee. You don't want to let it flop into the floor. So keep that knee standing up. And start to notice that your head begins to turn. You can turn your head to the left if you push into the foot. So now your right hand, I'd like it to get involved. So pause for a second on your back, and your right hand is resting on your left shoulder. I want you to slide it towards your left elbow. And then slide it back again. Imagine you've got I don't know, some cream that you want to rub gently into your arm. You're just going to slide the right hand towards your left elbow. And then slide it back and follow the connection from the hand through the wrist to the elbow to the shoulder, and you might even feel your ribs beginning to lift off the floor on that right side. So just allow it to happen. Or we could even look at the hand. So maybe look at your right hand. Keep your gaze on the fingertips and look at the hand as you slide it towards your left wrist. And just notice whether or not you're feeling this as a different movement now. Can we feel it at the left hip, the right hip a little bit more? So with a very gentle push, as you bring the hand towards the wrist, push gently with your right foot and allow yourself to roll onto your left side. And looking at your right hand, let it stay on the floor. And then we settle back down and rest back into the back. So the right hand, slide it along the left shoulder to the left elbow, looking at the hand towards the wrist. Gently push into your right foot and allow yourself to roll onto your left hip. And again, uncurl back onto your back. And again, imagine you've got that little ladybird or that little mouse or whatever it is that's so precious to you that you don't want to harm on your right knee. So keep the knee standing up. We could even just maybe focus on the footprint of that right foot and just let it stay neat. Feel the big toe, the little toe. Sliding your right hand across the chest, turning the gaze towards the hand, head stays on the floor, and again, gentle push. And just take it as far as you need. We could even explore changing the layout of the arm. So if you just want to rest for a moment, we could lay the left arm maybe towards the ground behind us this time. So if your arm doesn't want to go that way, don't let it go there. Just keep it comfortable. And then we're going to follow that same movement. We're going to just begin to slide the right hand up towards the left elbow, watching it as it goes. And again, that gentle pushing. You might feel as you do this time, you get a little bit more of an arching of the spine. So you slide the hand gently towards the elbow, towards the wrist, gentle push. And feeling the spine arching, and again letting it all roll back softly towards the floor. So let's take our time to settle, relax back down, and if it feels comfortable to have your legs in front of you, to have your legs on the floor, and just sense and feel your right side. Does it feel different? Mine certainly does. Do we feel flatter and lighter through the right side? So let's join in on the left side. So we're going to slide this time the left foot up. So we've got the foot rested on the floor, knee pointing to the ceiling. This time your right leg is straight. And lay your right arm on the floor somewhere by your side. And take your left hand and place it on your right shoulder. And again, starting the movement, push into the left foot and feel the pelvis tilting to the right. And again, take your time just to let everything settle and relax back. And again, pressing into the foot, and we can imagine we've got something balanced on the top of the left knee. Don't want it to fall over. Imagine it's sleeping there. You don't want to disturb its sleep at all. Pushing into the foot, and again, feeling how the pelvis turns, and you can start to let this left hand begin to join in now. So as we begin to push into the foot, oh no, not, we're going to stop. That's what we're going to do. We're going to pause, and then slide your left hand down along the right arm, and then back again. So you're letting that bottom half of the body stay sleepy this time, and you're sliding the left hand across the right arm towards the right elbow. Even look at it and feeling from the hands, from the wrist, through the elbow to the shoulder, into the ribs, the movement that brings us. And you can now then start to sense and feel this movement. It's maybe might be moving down towards the left hip, and it might be nice now at this point just to give that left pushed foot a little bit of a push as the hand leads towards the wrist, and roll onto your right side. So we're going to keep the head on the floor as we practice this. So again, lead with the hand, find it at the hip, little push and roll. And we're just taking our gaze to the hand, so just let the eyes follow the hand. So start with the hand and then push with the foot. So slide the hand, push with the foot. And as we did previously, you might just want to rest and take the right arm above the head and find the floor with the hand. And then start again by sliding the hand towards the elbow, towards the wrist, little push, looking at the hand. And again, rolling back onto your back. Even as you come back onto your back, your spine pushing up through you. And as you roll, arching through the ribs and the tummy. And then whenever you're ready, allow yourself again just a little rest, sliding your feet out, and just again sense and feel the left side of the body this time. How is that connected to the floor? Do we feel there's any more sense of dropping and resting? So let's move over onto our side for our final little thing. We're going to do something we did the other week. So pick your favourite side, or I should say the safest side for you. So I'm not going to say because I keep getting it wrong. So I know that if you're pregnant, you're not meant to lay it on your right side. So you're meant to lay on your left side. I don't know. Whichever side your midwife told you to lie on. And if you need a cushion, it's just going to be under your head, but there's no need. If you throw it without a cushion, don't have a cushion, we're going to lay it on our side. So let me get back into the space where you can see me. So knees are stacked, Arms are just kind of resting in front of you. You can have them, in fact, you've got one on your belly and just one on your chest, and you've got your feet resting together. And for a moment, just let your belly rise and fall in front of you. Just feel your belly rising and falling in front of you. You might start to feel your belly is not just the only thing that's breathing, but you can feel maybe your chest breathing and your shoulders breathing. And as you are taking this breath into your belly, you might even feel this movement in the pelvis and the tailbone. So as you take an inhale next, you lengthen your tailbone away from you into the space behind you and feel your spine arch gently forwards. And as you exhale, just allow your tailbone to curl gently under. There's not much movement. I don't want you to kind of make it into a very big movement. It's just a gentle pressing away and a gentle falling back. Just feeling this very gentle undulation of the spine through the body. So just pause for a second and now just picture the soles of your feet. And, you know, I've got a wall that I could use to use this, but if you haven't got a wall, that's absolutely fine. But just picture that just beneath your feet, you've got a little wall. And as we stood earlier on and we pushed into the floor, we could feel the push of the floor traveling up through the bones of the body. So just imagine that wall is beneath our feet and we're just going to press down into it. And just if you were to push into a wall, what would happen to the body above it? You would feel the force of that push traveling up through the spine. Just very carefully, just picture the push of the feet and just feel what will happen through the body, that gentle rising up through the spine towards the head. And again, just imagine relaxing the feet. Again, that gentle push of the feet as you inhale. And again, the exhale. Gentle push of the feet on the inhale. And again, the gentle exhale. It might be nice now just to bring the hands together and have them in front of you with the fingers interlaced. And just gently imagine pushing it into the feet on the inhale. And then just relaxing on the exhale. So let's begin to let all this movement go. Let everything relax and soften. And if you're happy to move on to your back, move on to your back. If you're happy to stay exactly where you are, stay exactly where you are. Just for the next few moments, we just stay again with the sensations of the body. Again, with our eyes closed, how do we sense and experience the body? It might be that we find it easier just to inner witness the sounds of the body, so our hearing is strong. And spent a lot of time sensing and feeling again. Again, you might be really attuned to the sensations of the tongue in the mouth and the flavours of the mouth. Again, sensing quality time, sensing and feeling the ground beneath us at any given time. The way the body moves against our clothing at any given time. So just witness this now. How do we feel and experience the body? Through clothing, through touch. As we breathe in, noticing any sense around the room, and again experiencing how you feel the breath. And so let's find ourselves rolling over to one side and towards seated. Or staying asleep, which is absolutely fine. Okay, I'm going to just pause the recording. I'll stop the recording, don't want to pause it.